GoForTheTwo.com in with the Week 14 predictions. Apologies for the late video. Was on air straight through Thanksgiving morning covering the NFL. You want all the top 25 battles? Tune in to college football today, Saturday morning, tomorrow, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern. I have you covered. We'll best bets, props, you name it, we'll touch on it in terms of the college football perspective. Going to be about 5 videos in regards to the picks, 5 picks on the video, rapid fire. Mostly underdogs, but we'll jump in to the 2 favorites that I do like in these matchups. Let's jump right into it. Clemson, South Carolina. Clemson has only lost 5 games at home since 2015, lost earlier in the year coming out of the bye to Louisville. Both teams need this victory. South Carolina, potentially the hottest team in the country, only giving up 18 points per game, 110 yards in terms of the opposing rushing attacks, well less than 3.5 yards per carry. Back end, very solid, holding opposing offenses to only 186 passing yards per game. I believe Clemson laying a short number is the right spot, 2.5. Again, very difficult game. Last time that South Carolina was in Death Valley, they handed the Clemson Tigers a loss 31-30 with Spencer Rattler at the helm. We'll see how this game plays out. Blue collar, very low scoring in my opinion, but in the end, I'm laying the 2.5 with the Clemson Tigers. I do feel they are an at-large team as well to sneak in to the college football playoff, depending upon the outcomes this coming weekend. We're laying the 2.5 with Clemson. Tennessee, another at-large team in perfect position to potentially knock down that college football playoff door. They're laying 10.5 on the road in Nashville against a team in terms of Vanderbilt that stepped up and covered numbers each and every week. The only week that they potentially didn't step up was at home against South Carolina about 3 weeks ago. They lost that matchup 28-7. They're catching 10.5 against the Volunteers. I know this seems like potentially upset on the horizon, but Tennessee has dominated the series over the last 5 games. They've won by an average margin of victory of 28.6 points per game. I think they have the defense to contain Diego Pavia, a better defense than LSU did last week. LSU should have won that game. They did, but they should have covered. Aaron Anderson with a big touchdown catch with about 7 minutes left. They called it no catch. They opted for the field goal. They were up 14, and then the next drive, Vanderbilt drives, scores a touchdown. You get the backdoor cover in Baton Rouge. I think it's a different story. Tennessee starts fast. They're able to run it. I think the schedule can maybe potentially catch up to Vanderbilt at this point. I know last regular season game, it's in your house against an arch rival, in-state opponent, but Tennessee has better athletes. I think Dylan Sampson and Nico break out with a big way, double-digit win, and they cover the 10.5-point number against the Commodores. Big, huge matchup. The big game, Ohio State, Michigan, line open up at 23.5. It's gone all the way down to 19.5. We know that Michigan's won the last 3 in terms of the series. Ryan Day and this team, potentially the best team in the Big Ten, although I'll argue that it's still Oregon. People are saying, Ohio State's the best team in the country. Will Howard completing over 70% of his passes. Travion Henderson and Junkins potentially could put some pressure on Michigan's defense. But 19.5 to me still at this point is way too much. As long as it's over 17, I'm willing to take the Michigan Wolverines. Lower scoring game. They put up a 50 spot last week against Northwestern, running the football a little bit better. Mullings and Donovan Edwards last week hit pay dirt. I just think from an emotional perspective, you're going to get everything that Michigan has. I don't know if they win, but 19.5 is way too many points in terms of this matchup. Purdue, Indiana. Purdue catching 29.5, not 9.5, not 19.5, 29.5 to Indiana. I get it. Indiana in a perfect position to dominate this game and get into the college football playoff. All they have to do is beat their arch rival. I will say Purdue playing a little bit more consistent with Ryan Walters. They covered as a 13.5, 14-point dog on the road in East Lansing. I still think they can potentially step up and cover this line. 29.5 is 4 touchdowns and a field goal. I get it. 30, 31 points on paper. Indiana's the much better team, but it's supposed to be cold weather. Purdue playing a little bit better. Rivalry game, you want to give me 29.5. I'll take those any day of the week. Give me the Boilermakers. I'm even taking a shot. A lot of pressure on Indiana, but that's me. 24-1 to win on the money line to me is just too heavy in terms of this matchup. I know that Indiana is the much better team, much better coach, much better quarterback, but still 29.5, too large in terms of my perception. You look at the last game on the docket, Tallahassee, Florida State. We saw Florida State last year step up, completely different team, but they did get a win against an FCS opponent last week. On the flip side, Florida's riding high, back-to-back wins over LSU and Ole Miss. This line opened up at 14.5. It's up to 16.5. This isn't Miami. This isn't Cam Ward. It's still an inconsistent team, in my opinion, in terms of Florida. Back-to-back emotional wins over former SEC West opponents. When you think about Ole Miss and LSU, right? Dominated both of those games from the defensive perspective, forced 2 turnovers against Jackson Dart. Now you're playing lowly Florida State, not only laying 14.5, but you're laying 16.5 with Lagway on the road in this spot. If you have any heart, Florida State, you cover this line, 16.5. I like the Seminoles. We'll see you on Saturday. 5 picks, 2 favorites, 3 dogs for Saturday. Clemson, minus the 2.5. We like Tennessee, minus the 10.5. Dogs, Purdue, plus the 29.5. Michigan, plus the 19.5. And Florida State, plus the 16.5. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.